welcome to Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am one of your post-game hosts, Desmond, and I've got my partner here, Dre, who is also our post-game host as well and weekly contributors to the channel. Thanks so much for joining us. Please like and subscribe. We are trying to get to 5,000 subscribers to the Michigan channel, and also subscribe to Mark's main channel, The Voice of College Football, which I believe last I checked, he was north of 36,000 subscribers. So join his channel, subscribe there, and then also join his Patreon for 24/7, 365 football chat all the time. Dre, what is going on, my friend? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, good. We golfed yesterday together, which we'll forget about the results there. But there was an announcement made from the Michigan football Twitter handle about the quarterback announcement. And yesterday I shot you a text like, hey, man, do you want to do a stream to kind of talk about the decision? And you said, absolutely, yes. And you have a lot to say about it. So with that, I will just kick it off to you, man.
Yeah. So it was funny. It was a decision of indecision by Harbaugh. I'm indifferent to it. I don't like it nor hate it. I think there are pros and cons to both to this type of path. Um, I think giving both guys game action, which is their game, there's going to be no coming in and out. Uh, there's a benefit to that because it's just like, okay, you don't have to look over your shoulder, go win the football game. Let's see what you got, right? Run the offense. Um, I think a con to it is, you know, potential conflicts down the line. For example, what if both guys play extremely well? What do you do? Because at some point, you're going to have to make a decision here. And Des, me and you have been on this um, pretty much all off season. Like at some point, Harbs has to make a decision and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is the guy we're going to grow with and live with what happens with it. And part of that is the likelihood of whoever does not get the job, there is the opportunity that they leave. That's just the reality of the situation. And it's not that I don't believe Harbaugh when he says that they have two quarterbacks that believe they are capable of winning. But you can't convince me that a big part of his indecision is the fear of one guy leaving if they don't get the job. I believe that wholeheartedly. Maybe more likely JJ leaves than Cade because of eligibility, and Cade's already has this year and maybe next year. And if he decides to come back due to a red shirt because of COVID. But JJ has at least 3. So, I mean, maybe that factors in, but yeah, it's definitely interesting. And the only ask I have of Harbaugh is don't handcuff the offense, right? Game 1, game 2, let these guys grip it and rip it. And let's see who can put up the most production on offense. Because to me, you can't fully evaluate who the better quarterback is if you do the approach they did last year, even with teams they were way better than, right? I mean, what evaluation are you getting out of having your quarterback have 15 attempts? You know what I'm saying? Like, no. I think both guys need to have about 35 attempts at least, and let's see what they do. If K has 35 attempts and he goes 2 touchdowns, 2 or 3 touchdowns and 350 yards and he's efficient, but JJ gives you 4 touchdowns and 2 picks and, maybe he gives you 400 yards, something crazy like that because of how bad the opponent is. Yeah, you'll have to weigh that. That is a legitimate evaluation because in that particular situation, Cade is showing that he's efficient and he's scoring points, which you knew he could do. But JJ may show you a few more explosive plays down the field, and his yards may look better, but maybe he gave you a few more turnovers, right, due to inexperience or him being a little bit more of a gunslinger. So I just think that if they're going to do this, which they are, make sure that you letting these kids let it go, and let their true game show itself. So there's no more indecision. And Steve Dace said that he liked it because of the transparency of it. And I agree with it. I agree with him on that thought process. That there's going to be no more posturing, no more rumors. We're going to see for a full game what both these guys can do, right? And so when they finally do make a decision, whatever camp you're on, you will have either more burden of proof for your guy starting, or you don't, or you have less proof. And it's like, maybe my guy can't start. You know what I'm saying? So there are pros and cons to it, but yeah, I'm pretty much down the middle.
Yeah, when I initially saw this yesterday, my initial reaction was that this is a cop out. That was my initial reaction. The
Right.
longer that I've kind of thought about it, I like the approach because it's a guy with the ones playing against the ones of the other team. We had a stream a couple weeks ago where we were talking about this. We've talked about this every stream because it's a very big storyline that you had mentioned. Well, have JJ start the first half and then the second half have Cade start, and I didn't like that because of the potential of whoever's going with the ones, you're throwing to the better receivers and the better weapons on the team, whereas the guy who's playing the second half has to, is playing with the twos. They could be still really good players, but they're not the best possible players that you have, so that could make an impact on the performance. I do like this aspect where you're the guy, this is your game. It doesn't matter if you make a mistake, you're going right back out there. So I do like that approach, and even as I think of the timeline of everything, JJ getting hurt in the spring, I think is what threw everything off
For
because
sure.
you couldn't get an evaluation on both guys because one of them just wasn't practicing, and I think due to that, I think it's dragged things on a bit to where you could have some scrimmage live 1-versus-1 situations in the spring, whereas you're not going to do as much of that in the fall. So it kind of threw things off. But as I sit here today, I do like the approach that it's going to be, this is your game. We're treating this game as if you are the guy. So go out there, play your best. You're not having to look over your shoulder. You're not having to worry about, man, I fumbled the snap or whatever the case may be. I'm going to get pulled. I'm not going to play the next series. This is your deal. And the thing that I like the most about it is I think both of these guys are going to play well because I think Michigan is just so much more talented than both of these opponents. But the thing that I really like is to be a quarterback and make a mistake, whether it's an interception or fumble, but to turn the ball over and go back out there the very next drive, like that, to me, you can learn a lot about a quarterback after he makes a mistake. And what does he come back and do? Does he come back and try to turn into a hero, right? I just want to hit a home run. Or does he come back, kind of reset things and say,
Or get
let me get
gunshot.
back in the offense. Let me just do my job, and we're good to go. Like, so I do overall, I do like it. I think the difficult part is going to be, what if essentially both of these guys play well? Like, where does that leave you for game 3? You know what I mean? So if, let's say Cade starts first game, he throws for 350, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and JJ, plays the next game, he throws for, let's say, 400, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. How do you make a difference of, yep, okay, it's clear as day, the guy 1 or guy 2 is going to be the one. So I think I think, although I like the decision, I think it could potentially lead to more possible indecision
Yeah.
because because I think both of them will play well. So it's not, I would be extremely shocked if one of these guys comes out and has 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, or 1 touchdown, 3 picks, something like that. Like, I just don't think that's going to happen. So if both of them give you an A performance, how do you then make a decision from there?
Yeah. So I mean, you're essentially in lockstep with me on that point. 'Cause that was the exact same thing I said. In terms of like both guys play well. I mean, you can just it would just at some point, either way, at some point, Harbaugh has to make a decision. You have to make a decision and just live with it. And I think there's a small factor. I don't know what percentage of it is that he is being indecisive, partly because of the I don't know, likelihood is the right word, but the opportunity that one guy leaves, right? He wants to have both. He probably does like both. I believe he really does like both, right? One guy helped him have a really good season last year. It was very efficient. The other guy is a very talented kid, a kid that you don't really recruit there very often. Caliber a quarterback you don't get there very often, right? And you want to keep him there, right? So I mean, I'm not saying that it's an easy decision to make, but you can't continue to keep pushing this, down the road. At some point, you got to pick a path, right? It's going to be a fork in the road. You're just going to have to choose one, right? Me and you talked yesterday after golf, and ironically, it was before this decision came down the pipe. We were talking about did Kirby Smart make the right decision? He actually between Jay Fromm and Justin Fields, right? And me and you disagreed on that. I'm like, well, how can you say definitively he was wrong choosing Jay Fromm, even though Justin Fields is a more talented quarterback? I mean, it's not like he had he had really good success with Jay Fromm. Got to the college football playoffs twice. Justin Fields got to the college football playoffs twice for Ohio State. Both had really good careers, no matter how talented one guy was over the other. So, I mean, look, and then, you can argue if Justin Fields was there, maybe they win a national title. But at the end of the day, like, you have to make tough decisions sometimes as head coach when you have two starting caliber quarterbacks. So, and then another thing, too, I was, watching football games yesterday, and Dan Mullins on ESPN, former coach of Florida, he coached at Florida, right? Am I correct?
Who?
Dan Mullins.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Yes. Dan Mullins did coach at Florida.
Right. He was talking about this decision because the news came on around the time they were doing their halftime show. And he said that he doesn't mind it, but it could be tricky. It could be a little bit tricky to handle in that locker room because for a multitude of factors. One, he said, as long as the whole team is on board, everybody's on the same page. He said that multiple times. Everybody has to be on the same page. Like he said, I assume, Jim Harbaugh sat with both guys and told them, hey, look, this is what I'm thinking about. This is how I look at the situation. It made it clear to both quarterbacks, this is where I'm at, this is where you are, and this is the opportunity you have going forward, right? So he said he hopes, he does believe that Harbaugh has done that, right? Make sure everybody has to be on the same page, and as a team, everybody has to buy into it, right? And there can't be any kind of trying to keep any factions out of the locker room, right? One guy pulling for the other. Like it can be a little bit tricky going down this route, right? So he said the main thing is communication and being totally transparent with where things are. And I can't remember the other guy that was sitting next to him, but he was talking about from a player standpoint. Like the analyst next to him asked him, like, hey, well, as a player, how do you feel about this? Dan Mullins get a perspective as a coach, but he was asking the guy as a player. And he said, well, as a player, it doesn't bother me because I just want whoever's going to help us win to play. Like that's all I care about. Like if you're the best guy for us to win, then fine, let's roll. So then that's one guy's thought process. But I would like to believe that most guys are like that. Hey, look, we just want to win, man. So if this game, you're giving us the best chance to win, let's go. So it could be a little bit tricky. I don't think this is like one of those, this is the best possible solution, and we're going to get a clear, definitive answer. Because I agree with you, Des. I think there's a high likelihood that both these quarterbacks play well prospectively. Now, it might look different, right? Cade may be a little bit more efficient, right? And maybe he has a higher passing percentage. Maybe he goes, I don't know, let's say 28 for 35, right? 30 for 35, but it's for 300 yards, right? And a couple TDs, no picks. And maybe JJ goes, I don't know, 26 for 35, but it's for 370, 385. But he runs for 35, 45 yards, maybe a touchdown, those 2 touchdowns there. You know what I'm saying? It's more dynamic, more explosive. It looks different. But from an offensive output standpoint, they're both very productive. So what the hell do you do? So, and if you're on either side, you still gonna be want to pull for your guy. If you're on Team K, you're like, well, K still played well in this game. Why are we benching him? He played well. He played well last year. He played well this game. So, and even though JJ plays well, game 2, you're like, well, he didn't play that better than Cade. He just played differently than Cade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, vice versa. So I think it still can be confusing potentially for the fans and even like the coach staff. Like I think it's cool to see. It's going to be good to see both guys get live, uninterrupted game action. But it's definitely not, I think, a clear, concise solution.
Correct. So before we continue, Captain Banana Peel has got to be trolling. Like, he's got to be with this comment. Saw some flashes from Nebraska yesterday. Ingredients definitely there for them to be a natty contender. Hopefully JJ is ready for Revenge of Frost.
Okay.
There's no way. There's no way that could be serious.
You need to worry. I don't know if your head coach is going to make it to October. So if you're a Cornhusker fan at this rate, I mean, there was a lot of people who said to leave him in Ireland. So, how about, granted, I like what I saw out of Thompson yesterday for Nebraska. I think he is an upgrade over Adrian Martinez, but y'all they need to figure out their head coaches.
That has to be a trolling job there. It's got to be.
Yeah, I know it is, but I just thought it was funny.
But Kenneth Joyce has an interesting comment. If you start JJ, it'll be better for recruiting purposes. And my question to you is Jim Harbaugh essentially just delaying the inevitable? To me, I don't see a path where JJ is not going to be the starting quarterback. And that's what I feel like we're doing. Like, we're just delaying the inevitable because to me, if both are even, if both give you A+ games, regardless of stats and things like that, if both give you A+ games, it's going to look better from JJ, right? Sure. Like, I think we can all agree the element of him running the ball, he's explosive. So if I don't know, maybe that's what we're doing, but I kind of feel like we're just delaying the inevitable. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, look, the momentum is always from the moment from the moment he committed to Michigan. The momentum of the JJ McCarthy start train has been on the tracks, right, and it's been rolling forward. And absolutely, if JJ plays well, it's going to even enhance that even more, right? So it gets to the point where Harbaugh's going to probably have to make an I think it goes beyond just a football decision. It's probably an emotional decision as well. Because if you think about it from an intangible standpoint, Cade McNamara is the perfect quarterback for Jim Harbaugh. From an intangible standpoint, right? Especially in how Harbaugh really liked to run his offense back in the days of San Francisco and Stanford, right? He's a pro style. He's not like a very athletic kind of quarterback. Pro style, make smart decisions. Control the TOP in the run game. He fits that perfectly. Accurate with the football, sound decision maker. And so I think Harbaugh really, and he named him and the team named Cade the captain. I think he really likes Cade, pulls for Cade, believes in him. But this kid JJ is probably to the point where it's like, I can't deny this kid no more. And I can't lose him. And he's playing well enough to the point now where it's just his time, right? So no, I mean, I definitely could see that, Des. But I still think if Cade plays well, it's going to be like, man, like, are we really benching this guy? And he did absolutely nothing wrong, like nothing wrong. Didn't lose us a football game. Like even the MSU game last year, Cade played incredible. He played very well against MSU last year. Our worst loss of the season. I'm not counting Georgia. That was in the playoffs. Our worst loss in the regular season, only loss.
The only one.
Michigan State. And Cade played well. It was the defense that let this team down. Defense and questionable calls. People want to go there and all that good stuff. But, so I just, man, it's incredible that we're still in this indecisive you know, limbo area. But and let me be very clear. I don't think it's an easy decision to make, but we don't get paid to make the decision. Harbaugh does, and he needs to make one at a certain point. I'm fine with this middle ground right now. I mean, especially considering the fact of the opponents that we have. And look, I think a good way that people can look at it is kind of similar to like these first few games being like NFL preseason game, right? In college, you don't have that, but in NFL you have it. And case in point for what the Detroit Lions have done the last couple of weeks. Last week, Dan Campbell started. What's his name? David Blau. Right, I'm not going to bore everybody with this, but David Blau, and he let him start that game. The starter for the Lions, Jared Goff, is not playing in the rest of the preseason, so they're trying to determine who's going to be their defensive backup. So last week he gave David Blau the start, right? Probably to see, okay, how does David Blau, if we know we don't have our starter going to a game, how does he prepare? How does he approach with the first string guys, right? And then this week he's going to start Tim Boyle. Right, and see how he does, and that's probably just to see, well, how do both guys take starting a football game and being the guy, in their best case to be the backup, right? So, I mean, it's not unheard of what Harbaugh is doing. It's just and it's definitely plausible, and it's not going to hurt because of how bad the opponents they're going against are. But it still is indecisiveness, and we're still in that limbo,
Yeah, and D Brown says Harbaugh is doing it the right way. You can't lose the locker room the way he's doing it. And D Brown has also mentioned that it's clear that JJ is the starter. They're doing this to honor Cade to start off, but that can be true. But what if Cade plays better in the game and then JJ does not play as well in his game? So to me, if JJ is the starter, then just make him the starter. Like, don't play these games. Like, this is big time football. This isn't high school. You don't have time to mess around and we're trying to appease both guys. If it's pretty clear that JJ is the starter, then just announce that JJ is the starter, and let's not do this dance that we're doing. This is big time football. This is big boy football. If you got emotions, sorry, that's a you problem, not a me problem.
Right.
So if that's the case, then just roll with JJ, right? Because if it's clear to the coaching staff that JJ is the better quarterback, then it's probably clear to the players as well that JJ is the starting quarterback and the better guy. So if what you feel is true, D Brown, then why are we doing the dance? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if that's the truth, I get it. Like, Cade, yes, he did a really good job last year of running this offense. And yes, he was voted team captain. That doesn't mean that you have to be a starter. Usually it is a guy being a starter, but I think it's more to being a team captain is not you're the best player on the team. It's you are a leader on the team. Your teammates respect you. They look to you for guidance. Like, that's what you're someone that we can count on every single day, not just the games, but practice, in the classroom, like meetings, things like that. Like, you're a guy that we can count on, and we know that you're going to lead us and do the right things. And it may be that you play every play. It may be that you don't. So to me, those things are separate. It doesn't mean, like, captain doesn't mean QB1. It just means you're a leader. So to me, he can be a team captain and not be the starting quarterback. Like, that's okay as well. So I guess that's my thing. If it's clear it's JJ, then just make the decision.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly. I mean,
we're missing the point. Okay.
I remember looking at his comments this whole time. It's like the guy D Brown, he's making it seem like, oh, this is a fantastic decision. It's like it's indecision. It's not even a decision. It's indecision. Anytime you're playing a middle ground, right? And as of now, all we know is the first two games. Harbaugh didn't say Cade's going to play the first game and then JJ is JJ's job's going forward. It's Cade game 1, JJ game 2. 50-50. 2 games, one guy gets one, the other guy gets the other. That's it. If you're being 50% on a decision is indecision. I'm like, and the decision is who is the starting quarterback. There's no dual starting quarterback. It's either one guy or the other. Now you might do and like what's the saying? Like if they say you got two quarterbacks, you have two starting quarterbacks, you don't have one or something like that. Like it's you have to make a decision here. And we do need to call line because like you can call up anytime. I don't know how you could be so like, oh my God, I love this decision and it's going to work out great. And it's like, I mean, we're not saying that it's going to work out badly. All we're saying is that there is the opportunity that this could create even more indecision or controversy. Because what if both guys play well? And what's the big deal? I saw this too. What's the big deal of JJ starting at night? I don't care. Start at night or the daytime, that doesn't matter to me. You got to perform. And would it make a bigger deal if it was against a big time opponent? Sure. There's a lot of hype there because not only all eyes are on you, but you have a big opponent that you have to play well against. Playing a night game versus a crappy team doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So it's like, I think people hear our tonality and if they think that we're being negative, all we're saying is that there are pros and cons to going about it this way. And for the big question of who is going to be the guy for this team going forward, we don't have the answer to that yet. All we have, Des, and the good people that are watching us today, listening to us today, you have the guy that you like and the guy that the other person likes. You either like Cade or you like JJ, or you're in the side, or you're kind of like, well, I just want to win. But it's not. We don't know today. Okay, this back and forth is over. We know who the guy is. Let's play football, and that's the point. That's what we're talking about. I think that me and you are in lockstep. That both these guys can be very successful here. The team in terms of being in the mix of what they did last year, both guys are more than capable of doing that. But one guy has a higher upside. We're all pretty much in lockstep with that. But what we're saying is that we're still in this limbo. And it's okay to say that. Okay, well, this is cool. We see what both guys are doing in the game. But we're still kind of in the limbo. And I just want the best guy to finally show themselves so we can put this behind us and focus purely on winning football games.
Yeah, it's... like I said, the decision or lack thereof is what it is, but it seems like a lot of people are thinking that it's going to be JJ or that it is already JJ, and I just think football is way too, at this level, is just too big time to be playing or catering to somebody's ego. And if you think that is Cade, and you think you need to do that to honor, like, is one person bigger than the team? Because I know what Bo Schembechler thinks. No, it's not. One person is not. So we are not going to change our operation just to appease one player's ego. We're just not going to do it. So, D Brown, all right, we're really struggling to understand. No, we're not. We are. What I'm saying is, I understand what you have said. You've left plenty of comments, and thank you for them. But I understand what you're saying. You're saying, hey, they're gonna honor Cade by letting him start game one. Basically, from game 2 forward, it's gonna be JJ. I get it. I understand that. But the point is that if it's going to be JJ, if you're sure it's going to be JJ, then why even have the faux start for Cade? I get it. He's a team captain. I understand that too. But there's no point of doing that. Like, this is big boy football. This is not little league. This is not high school. We don't have time for that.
It's a business.
Michigan is trying to win a Big Ten championship and a national championship. We don't have time for kiddie stuff, because that's exactly what that is.
Des, correct me if I'm wrong. Has J.J. McCarthy ever been a starter before? No.
Not at Michigan.
Not in Michigan, right? So why would we sacrifice a whole game of repetitions for a morality play? That's a whole game of repetitions.
Okay. So
a whole game. So I'm going to basically just like, all right, well, I appreciate this kid K so much. So you know what, we're going to give him a whole game. Mind you, we have this young kid who's really talented yet inexperienced, being a starter. So we're going to forego, one of these really, essentially a ramp up type game, right? And instead of him having 3, we'll give him 2, and hopefully he's ready for the tougher schedule in a week, in a minute. Thanks, man. Thanks for joining, but dude, you're just not. We're not seeing some particle on this. That just makes no sense. This no. I'm going to give the young kid who I believe at this point is the best guy for the present and the future. I'm going to give him as many repetitions as possible because we're not in the business of, oh, we're 4-0, but JJ, he's still learning, right? He's still going through those early young hiccups that a lot of quarterbacks can go through. We drop a game at Iowa because he's not quite ready. No, I want to make sure this kid is as prepared as possible. That is your job as the head coach, to make sure I'm doing everything possible to put my team in position to win, for my guys to succeed. And if you know that one particular guy is the person, is the quarterback, then it is your job, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are putting that kid in the best position to succeed. It's that simple. And just giving away a football game because you want to honor and care for one kid's feelings, that makes no sense. And no big time coach does that. Sorry, nowhere. Jalen Hurts got Alabama to the freaking national title game and got pulled. Okay? There's no feelings here. Okay, so if that's how you think that Harbaugh, oh man, he's just trying to do the morale thing, he's trying to do the right thing by his kid, then you're living in a la-la land. I'm sorry. You go talk to a Division I football player. I'll talk to former Michigan football players. I'll talk to guys from state. You need to understand the things that are going on behind these doors and the pressure that these kids have. And when you are a player on scholarship playing for a big-time program, it's a business, guys. It's not, oh, we're a family. It's not, no, it's a business. You either perform or you don't. You either earn your starting job or you do not. That's it.
Yeah, to me, it's just silly. And I'm going off of a assumption that if you feel that JJ is the guy and this is just semantics, then don't do it. Then don't do it.
Dave, highlight this by Dave. Yes, Dave. Yes, Dave. Yes, Dave. Yes, Dave. Yes. Yes. If I think if you were thinking of the player, you would make a choice and then get them a choice. Absolutely. If you really care, let's say if Harbaugh, JJ's a guy, but I love Cade and he's done so much for us. I respect that kid, right? But I know JJ is in the cards for us. Now, how about you make a decision? If you really care about Cade and his well-being and his future, how about you make the decision, tell Cade, be upfront with him, JJ's a guy. We love to have you here. We love to keep you here. But if Cade makes a decision, hey, I appreciate that, and leaves, hey, you're doing right by that kid, because now he can make the best decision for himself, not for you, but for himself. So, Dave, I totally agree with you on that. If you really care about these, if that's why you're doing this, right, because you care about these kids so much, then you do right by them and don't be indecisive with their future, and tell them and be totally transparent about where you're leaning. Because let's be honest about this. If you were leaning towards JJ eventually taking over, you won't be going through all this, would you, Des? You would have did what you did last year in terms of the packages and bringing JJ in and all that stuff. No, it was always about slowly bringing this kid, JJ McCarthy, into the fold for eventually taking the mantle. And you were right. It's inevitable. We're eventually going to get to JJ McCarthy taking over. It's going to happen. So do right by the kid and just be honest.
Yeah. And the situation happened in Baylor, if I'm not mistaken. I think Jerry Bohannon over the spring got beat out, and I can't remember the quarterback's name, but the coach made the call in spring. Jerry Bohannon was able to transfer to either UCF or USF, and he just got named QB1 there. So that is a great example of how it can work out for the better, no matter what. If JJ gets named the starter, I think Cade probably is going to stay. I think he really enjoys being at Michigan, but that's also what I think. I could be totally wrong. He could think that way and feel that way and still feel slighted. Man, I did as much as I possibly could and lost my job. Now I feel a different way, right? We're talking about 18 to 22-year-old young men. So feelings, emotions, all of that come into play because they're human. So it could change it for him, and he could say, you know what, I want to go somewhere else, and vice versa. If Cade gets named the starter, I feel that JJ does also really enjoy being at Michigan, but that's also in lockstep with a decision has not been made for him to be QB2. So if that call gets made, I could also see that happening where JJ say, you know what, I'm a 5-star kid. I feel I'm talented enough to start at a lot of places. I'm going to go somewhere else and try my shot somewhere else.
Opportunities. And Cade as well, by the way. If JJ McCarthy entered the transfer portal, he'll have plenty of opportunities and really cool, really good opportunities, mind you. Okay, because there are a lot of good programs that are looking for a quarterback. So and it is what it is. And Cade as well. Cade would have an opportunity if he decides to transfer. There'll be opportunities for him. Like the experience that he had last year, D Brown, like he keeps bringing up cohesion and morale and brotherhood. You using those buzzwords tells me that you are totally ignoring. You're living you're thinking out of a bubble, D Brown. You're thinking out of a bubble, and that bubble is if you're excluding the reality of what college football is today. It's not. It's a business, man. It's a business. It goes beyond just I like it here. I like the coaching staff, especially if you're a kid that's very talented, and there are other programs out there that are saying, "Look, we want you. We'll give you the keys," and you're thinking about that, and you have your family saying, "Hey, look, you can do this." At the age of 18 and 22 years old, you're still developing. You're still maturing. Your brain is still maturing. Mm-hmm. And your parents come in and say, hey, like, I think you should make this move. I know you like it here. We like you here too, but this could be a really good opportunity as well. And this is the small window in your life, right? And you may make that move not 100% in, but your people around you may be looking out for what's best for you. It's more that goes into it besides brotherhood and cohesion and morale in terms of a kid leaving or staying. Especially today. You don't have to sit out a year. You play right away. So you have to think about that, man. You can't just think into that thing. I'm not saying that those things don't matter. I'm saying that it's way more in a scope. It's a way bigger scope of just the way you're looking at stuff. So when we're talking about transferring and guys not liking things and decide to make moves with their career, we're factoring those other things in besides just the internal stuff, right? It's the external stuff that matters a lot too. And you can't forget that. And if you haven't noticed that, then you better open your eyes because it's going to continue to be like this. Pittsburgh had one of the best seasons they had in a long time. And they lost their star wide receiver to go to a better opportunity. Different position, different school, but it's not like Jordan. Did Jordan Addison have some kind of bad season last year, Des? No,
he was awarded the best wide receiver in college football award.
The team he was on was good. Wasn't great, but good. They played in a New Year's Six bowl, right? He got the chance to potentially play on national TV. Right, not in the regular season, but so it's not like he can't play at Eastern or North Texas. No. I mean, so it's just there are other factors besides that, man.
Well, the thing that I would say is last season was historic, and I've said that many times. But before last season started, and I'll ask you this, Dre. For the time that Jim Harbaugh was at Michigan, had they reached the goals and the pinnacles that they've wanted in any of those seasons before last year?
No.
And when it comes to the quarterback position before last year, do you feel like he had slam dunk, even just decisions, regardless of who he was able to get on campus? Do you think he had slam dunk decisions on the quarterbacks in his time at Michigan?
No, it was always chaos, always indecisiveness. Besides the year with Jake Rudock, that was a really good grad transfer that he got.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, it was pretty much a quarterback carousel. It was always like the next guy up and the next hype, right? After Jake Rudock, they had Will Spate, take over, and he did okay. But it was, if it was a Spate, then there were people. There was a point in time where people wanted John O'Corn to start. That what literally before he started. There was a point in time when he transferred from Houston that people thought John O'Corn should have been a starter. Then they saw him play, and they're like, "Oh, we were wrong." Right? There was a point in time that people wanted Brandon Peters to be the guy. Oh, we had heard so much about Brandon Peters. Oh my God, this guy's gonna be fantastic. And you saw exactly why he wasn't starting right away. There was a point in time when people wanted to see Dylan McCaffrey, and then we saw Dylan McCaffrey, and he showed a little bit of signs. But hey, you checked his career stats since he's left Michigan. Okay, there's a point in time when people wanted to see Joe Milton, and then you saw what Joe Milton was. So no, it was a quarterback carousel for a while. So yeah.
And I think in that leads me to my point that it's not as if Jim Harbaugh has been crushing it with the QB decision to that he is beyond reproach on his decision making. Like, right. And I'm not trying to like crush the guy, but D Brown is making it seem like we are just psychos for even questioning how he's going about it. Now, he could still make the right decision this year. But do we need all of this to make the right decision? Like that, I guess that is my ultimate point. Do we need to go through all of this to make the right decision on the quarterback? And I don't think so. That's my point. I don't think we need to go through all this to figure this out.
No. I mean, you do an evaluation. You see these kids every day. You should be able to determine if this kid has what it takes to be successful or not. And Mike Ford, I want to hear that. Oh, I never wanted Milton. Yeah, you may have not wanted Milton, but there was a ton of hype about Joe Milton. There were some people calling him Cam Newton. I kid you not. Like, he could throw it 6'5",
on the biggest networks. And
yes. 6'5", 250. The dude could throw it 70 yards from his knees. Like, I heard this stuff. Trust me, it was real hype. There were people pushing for Brandon Peters. Absolutely. No doubt about it. At the time. Now, you can't do revision of history based on how they turned out. You got to remember, before they played, it took over, there was a ton of hype for some of these guys. Shea Patterson, a ton of hype being transferred in. Rightfully so. Because unlike those other guys, you saw what he was at Ole Miss. And it made sense. And we all thought, hey, this is, what do we call Sugar Shea? Me and Dez at work, like, Sugar Shea is here, baby. This is it. It took a while. And last year was like the first year where it was like the quarterback position was finally stable and not something that you have to question every week, in terms of the performance, right? So, man, it's just, and once again, if guys, I think some people can hear your tonality and they're not really hearing your words. We're not saying this is going to fail. We're not even saying that it was the wrong decision. I'm just saying that it was not a clear, concise solution, right? That's it. And it is still limbo. We're still in a bit of limbo. And at some point, we're going to have that recap of when they do make that definitive call. Would it be after week 3? I'm not so sure. We think so. Could we think, week 1, we know who's going to start week 1, week 2, but we don't know beyond that. What's the start Harbaugh could, like someone alluded to earlier, I mean, they don't have a real tough game till 5-6 games into the season. So what if both guys play really well the first 2 weeks? What's to stop Harbaugh for doing the same thing the next 2 games? Okay, well, we get a big printout about Harbaugh again. We were really pleased with both guys, week 1 and week 2, to the point where we think that they both still give us a good chance to win. So we're going to have this time JJ start week 3, and we're going to have K start week 4. Like, literally. Like, I mean, what's to stop him from doing that? If both guys play well. Because from his standpoint, he can say, look, you saw how both guys played week 1 and week 2. You're going to question me for wanting to play both guys? You saw how they played, right? So that's what we're saying. Like, it's not a clear and concise solution. That's all.
And Dre, think about this situation. Now, I'm just running through things in my mind now. But let's say that Cade plays better than JJ in his start, and then in week 3, JJ still gets named the starting QB. Do you think that's going to potentially have any issues in the locker room?
Well, say that one more
Right?
time.
Like,
I'm sorry, I missed that.
essentially, let's say Cade has an A+ game, and let's say JJ has a B game in his start, to where it's clear Cade played better in his game, and Jim still starts JJ. We talked about planting the flag. I planted my flag. I'm Team JJ.
Don't remind people of that, because it makes it seem like we want one guy over the other. I was just saying how I thought it would turn out, but whatever. Go ahead.
But right, could that potentially have an issue to where, we have his comments of what Jim Harbaugh said. Here are the things that I'm looking at, so on and so forth. Points per drive was something he mentioned. So you know what I mean? What if that happens? What if that situation comes up?
Ooh, Blake Name just had a really good scenario. What if both guys play badly because they're pressing because of the decision? That's possible. Like, and I texted this yesterday when this came out. I mean, think about it. Think about this, guys. JJ is playing week 2. You're an inexperienced kid. You believe in yourself. You want to do big things. You want this job. What if Cade comes out and plays splendid week 1? You don't think JJ is going to feel that pressure week 2? Now, that's a good thing in a way, because you find out what the kid is made of, for sure. But I'm talking about for the kid, absolutely. JJ will feel immense pressure. There's no way he wouldn't if Cade plays well in week 1, because JJ has to play well. He has to, right? And he knows now what he has an exact direct comparison for this year, right? It's like, oh man, that was a really good performance. I got to outdo that, right? So, and could that lead to making a couple mistakes? So absolutely, that factors into it as well. But in a way, that's a good kind of pressure, but still, like, it's absolutely a factor.
Yeah, that's true, because ideally, based on the timeline and what Harbaugh said, basically after game 2, right? So as soon as the clock hits 0 and the game is over, it's like, well, that the decision is coming. Like, it's coming. So it's interesting, man. I think it will be. I think it'll work out fine, but I just feel like this is a lot to go through to make this decision. Like, and the thing is too.
Thank you. Highlight this comment by Anthony. Maybe if it comes to someone else, then it doesn't look like we're being negative. like that's something I've been saying. You can't, if you're really paying attention and you're taking into account the landscape. I sound like a broken record. I say this all the time. The landscape of today's college football, then you cannot say that this does not play a factor. It absolutely does. You're just not paying attention. Guys come and leave all the time. The guy who started from Nebraska yesterday, Thompson, was just at Texas last year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like, he has a new starting job, right? Like, he just left a good coach and a program that at least has the potential of being good in Texas, to go to Nebraska of all places. Okay, so look, I mean, it just is what it is. Like, they're absolutely trying to appease both guys, because if you weren't, especially McCarthy, because if you were not, then you would have mixed them in the way you did last year, right? You wouldn't have, prolonged just the way you have. You're trying to make sure you keep both, make guys happy, so you don't risk them leaving. And of course, you don't want them to. What coach doesn't want 2 starting quarterbacks, in case of an injury, right? But it is what it is.
Yeah. And Rod Favre puts, there's no way they do this if they had a tougher out of conference schedule. I agree. But that's the benefit of having this schedule and this situation of, we're not sure who's going to start. But I agree with Rod Favre. If you are starting off with, who the heck? Wake Forest. If Wake Forest was game 1, you would have already decided who your quarterback was. You wouldn't be doing this back and forth. Maybe you would play both of them, but I would lean towards there would be a named starter, QB1, and then, potentially we may throw both guys out there, but I agree with it, but that's the benefit that you get with having this schedule this year. So, you just kind of got to roll with it. Like I said, I'll just go back to the same thing. I feel like the sentiment is that the staff is I think, this is my opinion, I think the staff is going to name JJ as QB1. And I'll repeat it again. If that is the case and you're about 95% sure of it, just make the call. Just do it from day one.
Rip
Do
the
it from day
Band-Aid
one.
off.
Yes, rip it off and let's just go. Like like Jim Harbaugh has the right to do that. He's the head coach here. He's coming off a playoff appearance, a conference championship, beat Ohio State. Like you get the bandwidth to make whatever call you want. Like because these are human beings and football players. So yes, it may work out well, it may not. But there's no way to know that. So if JJ's the guy or you think he is, just make him the guy and let's not do the games because here's the thing too. Here's what I do know. Jim Harbaugh does not want to field questions after game one about, well, where do you feel like the evaluation is? And I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to field during the week of his media session, things of that nature. I'm sure he doesn't want to answer these questions. Well, guess what? If a decision was already made, you wouldn't have to. Like in after week 2, I guarantee post game, Michigan wins 50-0. Hey Jim, are you leaning any toward any way, JJ or Cade, blah blah blah. And I'm sure he'll be annoyed by the question, but unfortunately, it's like you have created this situation, and so now, therefore, the media is doing their jobs. They are asking these questions. So I think memorably to Nick Saban when he was doing it with Tua and Jalen, he was super annoyed after one of those games with Maria Taylor. He was in the wrong. It's like you've made the situation, Nick Saban. That's why she's asking about the quarterback situation because you created this situation that we're currently living in. So. That's life.
Yeah, I mean, when you keep the door open when you make a call that keeps the door open for, different options, right? Then people have the right to ask you about that open door until you close it. That's it. This quarterback situation is an open door, and until you close that door, then we have the right to bring up, hey, look, the door's open for a reason. Where are you here? Are you ready to close it now? Are you ready to close it now? Are you ready to close it now? And it's up to you to make that change. And once you do, then we can move forward. And we know that door is no longer open. It's no longer an option, right? So, like this, say we can give a guy the bandwidth to make a call and not criticize it. We can criticize anything we want to, because I can critique anything I want to. It doesn't make me right. It doesn't necessarily make me wrong. Because at the end of the day, the results will play out for what it is. But, if you're really listening to what we're saying, we're not saying that this is going to end badly. We're saying that this is not, there's room for pros and cons to this path, in that we're still have that door open. I don't know. I try to use that metaphor to make it easier for some people. The door is still open. That's just it.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I think it'll be exciting to see what both of these guys do. But yeah, I mean, it'll play out, and we will be here to talk about it and see what the results are. I mean, I wonder if we should do like a poll after week 2 before a starter gets named, see kind of what everybody thinks. Who are we leaning JJ? Are we leaning Cade? But it'll be interesting. On a different note, you had mentioned before we kind of hopped on about Scott Frost in Nebraska. That was yikes. Interesting. That was interesting.
Not just his decision making, but Northwestern streaming. It's just, what a terrible way to lose that game. You come out hot. And then you just never want your head coach to make it. I'm not saying it's not easy being a head coach. It was easy to be a head coach, and everybody would do it. But a lot more people will try to do it. When you make a decision and it seems like it's unnecessary, and then it backfires, is a crap storm of criticism coming your way, and that's what happened yesterday with Scott Frost. And I'll say this too. He made some comments about his offensive staffs being more aggressive or changing up or whatever it is. I'm just like, man, I'm starting to get the feel, and this is not a Nebraska channel, I know that, but I don't know if that man's gonna make it to October, guys. I really don't. I mean, like, it just feels like is falling apart, and like now, he's getting to the point when someone has so much pressure on them for a while, and Harbaugh was like this for a minute. You start getting testy, and you start lashing a little bit. You start taking shots even internally, right? And yeah, man, that seems like a ship that's just teetering to falling apart. But we'll see. You know, I don't know.
And they have Oklahoma in a few weeks.
Whew.
Yeah, that is a game that Nebraska definitely needed to win. And I think the onside kick will forever live in infamy, especially if Frost ends up not making it to the end of the season because it's one of those things where if it works, and that is pretty hilarious, Denzel. But
Frost melts.
that's
No,
really funny. But
yeah.
it's one of those decisions that if it right, they were up 28-17, I believe. So if you get the onside kick and you go and you get it, you score, you go up 35-17, that probably closes the door on the game and you win it and you look great. But if you don't get it and then you lose the game, then everyone looks at you like, why did you make that decision? It's pretty straightforward that you shouldn't have done that. And I don't know that. Yeah, but that's a difficult spot. But we're in game week. We are in game week.
We are, man. It's exciting, man. And we're going to watch, Michigan, the big boys, Bama, and not everybody else. And I'm excited to see. I know this is going to be used against me. I'm excited to see Notre Dame versus Ohio State. Just from a pure competition standpoint, those are our peers. From a Michigan fan perspective, we're definitely going to be competing against them to get to the college football playoff and get a spot, either directly or indirectly. And it's a big time matchup, just like Georgia Clemson last year. So I'm really excited. I can't wait to sit down and watch that game because I think that's going to be some really good football. Seeing Marcus Freeman, his debut, with Notre Dame and stuff like that. So it's some big time games, So even starting, Thursday, I'm looking forward to seeing Pitt versus West Virginia. So, no, it's exciting.
So with the Notre Dame and Ohio State game, obviously they are both rivals. So when it comes to that, you're not rooting for either team. You want them both to lose. But who would you rather have win that game? Because you're not going to root for either team, but who would you
Notre
rather
Dame,
catch the L?
Notre Dame because it gives Michigan another room for error in our Big Ten in the Big Ten. You know what I'm saying? Because let's say Michigan. Well, no, I take that back. Well, no, yeah, it won't affect their Big Ten record, but no, it's just an additional loss for Ohio State, so it's less to worry about there. I'm much rather Notre Dame win. Plus, I hate Ohio State more than Notre Dame, so I love to see them in agony. No offense, guys, if you're here, but
No offense. No offense. I do want you to hurt in pain. Yes.
especially at C-Bus, oh my God, it'd be amazing. Like just to see them come now. Everybody's talking about how pissed off Ohio State is this year, and guys are focused and stuff like that. And to see them if they got not rocked, but beat in their house, oh, that'd be great. That'd be great. Seeing their defense is supposed to be going through like this big change, and they get popped a little bit. Oh, that'll be very satisfying. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it would be. I'd imagine if you're an Ohio State fan and you lose that game, you'd probably kind of flash back to obviously last year and I don't think that was week one. I think it might have been their second game when they lost to Oregon. So you'd probably start to wonder if we're gonna have a repeat of last year. But obviously, there's no way to know until the season plays out. So we shall see. But I'm with you. Exciting. I think that'll be the first primetime game, 7:30 Eastern time on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just one of those games where it's like they're contemporaries, both of us. They're both contemporaries from Michigan, and you really don't want to see one have any success. But it's the first game of the year. But there's pros and cons to both of them winning because if Notre Dame wins, because they don't have a conference, that'll be like a big time win on their resume, right? So you won't be able to get rid of them in the freaking college football playoff rankings. You won't be able to get rid of them, unless they like drop some inexplicable games later in the season. But Ohio State, if they win, then it's just like, we still, as long as we take care of our business, then we still can get them at the end of the year. You know what I'm saying? So, you know,
Well,
that'll be
it'll pump up that Ohio State win even better, even higher, right? If they win that Notre Dame game, so now Michigan's the team to beat them, and instead of Notre Dame. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. But I took a look at Notre Dame's schedule. They've got BYU, they've got Clemson on the schedule later on in the season. They finished with USC, so a couple ranked teams, not many. But for Michigan, I think no matter what, they're going to move up in the rankings. So you go from 8, like I would imagine, even if Notre Dame loses, unless it's like a really close game, I would imagine Michigan will move up in the rankings and ahead of them. And then Ohio State's only 3 spots ahead, I think. Or no, I'm sorry, Ohio State's 2, and Notre Dame's 5. So yeah, if Notre Dame loses, Michigan will be ranked higher than them. So they'll be moving on up in the rankings either way. So that part's really nice.
Yep. But yeah, anyway, that's I think that's all I got.
That is all I got as well. Thanks everybody for joining us. I appreciate the comments. We've got about 100 on the line, so please give us a thumbs up on your way out. We definitely appreciate it, and we will be back here on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And once again, we will be live after the Michigan game wraps up on Saturday. And that is it. So we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Peace, guys.
Peace.